Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the session on integrating global content into STEAM projects. You have Heather Singmaster here from Asia Society and Kirsten Billington, who is an engineering teacher in South Carolina. And I'm Wendy Doherty with CDE Foundation, who is hosting this pre-conference for STEAM Symposium. And I would just like to ask, if you would like to ask questions of the speakers, please put the questions into the chat, and they will definitely be following those as they go through the presentation and try and incorporate and address your questions as they go through their presentation. And I think with that, I'll let Heather and Kirsten introduce themselves, and thank you so much for participating today.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm Heather Singmaster with the Center for Global Education at Asia Society.
And I'm Kirsten Billington. I teach Next Energy Engineering in Columbia, South Carolina.
So just a couple of housekeeping notes, which are that we do want you to use the chat. If you want your screen to be bigger so you can see the PowerPoint, there's a little button at the top next to where it says time left. It's like a little carrot kind of looking thing. You can click on that and it will make the chat disappear and your screen will be a little bigger for the PowerPoint. You can also double click on the PowerPoint to make it larger. And I will go into presentation mode right now so it's a little easier to read. I work at the Center for Global Education at Asia Society, where I work primarily on STEM and CTE or vocational education initiatives. The Center for Global Education is part of Asia Society, which is a nonprofit headquartered in New York, but we actually have offices across the globe. And despite the name Asia Society, our education work is actually focused really on providing a global education for students. And so we do this through our definition of global competence, which you can see here on the screen. There are 4 different domains. We developed this definition in partnerships with states across the country, with educators, with higher education input, with business input, really all stakeholders. And then we published it as a free book with Harvard University, and it's been widely adopted by states and districts across the country, as well as internationally. So we're going to share a little video here, just a quick 1-minute overview of what we're talking about when we're talking about global competence.
There are 4 key elements of global competence. Global competence starts by being aware, curious, and interested in learning about the world and how it works. Students are able to ask globally significant questions, analyze evidence from multiple sources, and develop an argument that draws defensible conclusions. Students recognize that they have a perspective that someone else may or may not share. They weigh all sides and from that incorporate different perspectives into their point of view. Globally competent students effectively communicate their ideas with diverse audiences, including through the use of appropriate technology. While English is the primary language of business, speaking another language is important for collaborating across borders. By applying what they have learned, students can translate their ideas into appropriate actions to discover solutions for both local and global challenges. We now face a critical imperative: to prepare all students for work and civic roles in an environment where success increasingly requires the ability to compete, connect, and cooperate on an international scale.
So you can see from that definition, it includes academic skills, the social emotional learning that's so important for students, also those 21st century skills of being part of a team, recognizing other perspectives, and being able to communicate. And then uniquely, it has that last piece of take action. So really helping students to apply what they've learned to make a difference both locally and globally. We've also created a set of rubrics, global leadership rubrics, which concretely lay out these skills. So we have them for all grades from K up to 12. And you can see here, this is the page for Investigate the World. So we have a page for each of the domains of global competence. And these are really helpful, not only so that you can really see what these skills look like, but think about how to assess them through project-based learning. Kirsten?
Yes, and just within that same, there is a book on global competence that breaks it down by core content, and it's really helpful when you know if you have a math colleague or science colleague that says I don't know how to incorporate global competence or what I'd be looking for in my classroom, and so they're really there are great rubrics and just guidelines for each of those 4 parts of global competency. What would I expect to see in my students, in a science classroom or a math classroom? That can be really helpful for teachers that don't know where to get started or what they should be looking for.
Yes, and in the chat box, we have the link to this PowerPoint, so you can go there and then you'll be able to get access to all these different URLs as we go through the presentation. So just very quickly, Asia Society has worked with schools across the country to help them be a global school. So we work with schools, specifically with teachers, to help them understand how to do high quality project-based learning that's infused with global content. And what we found is that in teaching this way, students are much more engaged in their work. They see how it can be applied to the real world, but they also see that their diversity and culture is valued. So we have much higher graduation rates than the national average. So we wanted to share just a little bit about our model of global project development. And so we're going to go through this kind of quickly, but then we'll share some resources. So if you're interested in creating your own globally focused projects, we have a set of professional development modules to help you do that. So this is the model that we work on with teachers. It's called the SAGE framework. It's an acronym. So the S stands for student choice. So when you're thinking about creating a project, really build in that student choice piece up front at the beginning. Thinking about our school day pre-COVID, students were in the building 7 hours a day, mostly being told what to do and not having a lot of choice. So if we can actually build in that choice piece, students feel much more responsible for their work and they're much more engaged. The A is for authentic learning experiences. So having students work on projects that are actually meaningful real world work, not busy work, and giving them that opportunity to be part of a team and do that research piece, the planning piece, and giving them feedback throughout the process and allowing them to revise as they go. The G is for global significance, which, as we've been talking about, that's our model of global competence and integrating that throughout. And I would say you can start really small with that, start with one question or one global comparison, and then build from there. And the last is E, exhibit to a real world audience. And when we think about this, I like to use this hierarchy of audience by Ron Berger. And you can see as you go up the pyramid, there's much more motivation and engagement on the part of students. So as they're doing that final project, if they're presenting to parents and teachers, that's something they do all the time, so they're not as engaged. But it's really once you get outside of the school walls to people who are actually capable of critiquing and giving real world feedback, that students feel that responsibility and ownership. And then at the very top there is to be of service in the world. And I think that's particularly important when we're thinking about STEM and STEAM careers, because there is this disconnect that has been shown between girls entering STEM careers. And some studies show that this is because girls want to be altruistic in their careers, and they don't necessarily connect that to STEM. So if we can have them working on larger global sustainability issues, they can make those connections of how they can improve the world, and we can have more girls staying in STEM careers.
And so just related to that, so my students, I said I teach basically an alternative energy curriculum that is all project-based. And at my school, which is a learning center, we pull students from 5 different high schools. So we're really in a great position. My district is majority minority. We have over 43 native languages spoken within our district. And so global citizenship and building those global competencies is a priority for the district. And so when they built our school, it was really with the intent of having students have those authentic experiences within the community based on the projected career growth that we saw in our area. That's in the middle of South Carolina. So just to briefly share my experience with that, my students have had, this is our 5th year at our school, and for the entire time, we've been in a long-term partnership with 2 communities in the colder region of Senegal, so that southern component. I was fortunate to be a part of Teachers for Global Classrooms, and in 2016, I got to travel to Senegal and be partnered with actually an ELA teacher who was really interested in our students working together, particularly on solar energy and really exploring some issues with energy and access. We want to try to be as brief as possible with this. So our students both built, tested, and optimized solar chargers. I'm looking, you can best see it maybe in that middle picture with some of her students in Senegal. And my students built, when they were building it and determining what would be the best charger for both phones and study lights, which were the criteria that both groups determined. They also made videos because as an ELA teacher, she really wanted her students to hear native English spoken in those directions. And so about a year after that project was completed, she came back and asked us to create a solar modular charger because they'd been given a photocopier at a different school where she was now principal, where there was no grid power. And again, our students collaborated to build this modular system where I don't want to get into too many details here, but where the boxes can work independently, but they can be bound to charge larger voltage and current details. And so with that, that second group of students spent a year working on that project as part of the Lemelson MIT Invent teams, and as a result got to present their invention at MIT. Really got a lot of that technical feedback, that authentic assessment, really in both parts of that project, and we continue to work for finding those energy solutions together. The real advantage to me, Heather was alluding to there before, is that I do see most of my students are underrepresented in STEM, and I see more of them staying with not just to go on to advanced classes, but choosing to major in engineering, choosing to take a gap year, you know, and seeing that that global significance really brings the interest and the aptitude to STEM. So it's one of the reasons why I continue to look for those experiences within my class.
Thank you. So thinking back to that student choice piece when you're getting started in building a project, how can you bring in that global piece? We actually say to start with a local issue, and having students think about what matters to them or what issues are happening in current events, or having them go out and ask different civic organization or community leaders, whether it's somebody at the Kiwanis Club, or maybe the Lions Club, maybe it's somebody at the Workforce Development Board or the local hospital, maybe it's the mayor's office. But now that we're all online all the time, it's a little bit easier to ask some of these people and bring in outside voices to help students think about what are some local issues that they could apply their STEAM skills to try and solve. So we thought it would be fun, interesting to get you to share a local issue that's affecting your community. If you could share one idea in the chat box, that would be great. Get some ideas going. I know I'm in Portland, Oregon, so right now we have a lot of issues going on in our community, many of them making national news. But we have issues of homelessness as well, which we've been trying to tackle as a community.
So, you know, it's just as some are coming in: unaffordable housing, child hunger, absolutely water shortage. which, you know, are all issues that locally have a significance, but also can have that greater, looking at that greater sharing across communities, of what that looks like. Throughout, one of the things I know I and some other students with the COVID, with the HAS solution is really, as my students go back virtually in a couple weeks, we're turning the problem over to them and having them really design some solutions for it. Someone just said PPE, for that safe social distancing. What can they design, you know, to really make that school experience safer? Technology, absolutely.
Yeah, the access to technology is huge. And I saw that Arizona is using some of their CARES Act money to actually provide internet in places that don't have access, which I think is fantastic. Should be a basic human right at this point. Okay, so just a couple of other resources on student choice that you can use to bring your students in and get them more engaged as you're thinking about developing different STEM or STEAM projects. One I really like is the question formulation technique. If you haven't heard of it, I strongly recommend that you go and check it out. It's basically a framework for getting students to figure out how to ask questions and ask good questions and think about the value of questions. And it's a very simple, straightforward exercise you have students do, and you can do it online as well. It really brings in every voice in the class. And it's a great to use as an icebreaker if you're maybe starting a new team. So that's one that you can use. Kirsten, do you want to share about the other two?
Sure. And so, you know, design thinking, some people are familiar with the like backwards design or whatever, with lesson planning is kind of that same. And then, of course, the energy design process, of really having that intent with that take action of building that final prototype. There's a lot of different engineering design, just like scientific method versions out there, but you know, having the students start with that problem and really develop a working solution. I just want to say, the QFT, the link that goes to that, all of their resources are free, and they have like downloadable templates of like the PowerPoint. It's a really really easy access to use. We use that as well sometimes.
Yeah, and I know that they've been developing resources for how you can do it better online. So yeah, that's worth checking out. The online activity you can do with students this fall. So now that we have these local issues, and hopefully we brought in student voice to think about what some of those are, we can then link them to global issues. And we like doing that using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So these are a set of goals that were unanimously agreed upon by the United Nations in 2015, with the idea that we would meet them by 2030. These are big, lofty goals, so we'll be able to do that. But underneath each of these goals are smaller targets. So those are actually great to use with students as hooks to get them interested in these larger global issues. But basically, any local issue that you have seen or written down in that chat box, you could find here within these goals. And so there are other countries that are working towards these goals. Some of them have come up with innovative solutions you could look at. So we recommend checking out these goals and using that as that hook to get students interested in the global piece.
And I think I talked a little bit, as I say in the corner, is their invention about that ongoing project. With the Sustainable Development Goals, there's also a lot of great opportunities under like the hashtag Teach SDGs, and that to really, if groups are interested, to have those global collaborations where they paired up. We did that last fall, where they paired up like 17 different schools around the world, and each one had the goal by, you know, relative age, and we taught each other those goals. So there is that meaning. And sorry, Heather, I just realized I jumped the gun a little bit with that, with our ongoing collaboration. Sharing that a little early, but one of the things I did want to say when we were saying about technology, soft skills, and all of that is at the end of this project, MIT, when they were presenting, this group of students was asked, what did they need to solve their invention? And the two things that they stood up and said was that we needed a problem, and we needed our cohort in Senegal to help us with that problem, and then we needed each other. And so the recognition in these types of long-term collaborative projects, I said, if they learned anything else, I appreciate that the processes, they really got the main educational message out of that, of what they really need to work as a group.
Yeah, those skills are so important for both life and for jobs, right?
Exactly.
All right, so time is flying by. We wanted to share some tools and resources to help you. Well, we knew 30 minutes was quick and would fly by.
Fast.
So we've created at Asia Society a toolkit that's packed with, again, free resources and tools. We don't have time to go through the entire thing, but we would urge you to go through and explore. I'll just point out a couple of things. The first one is classroom projects. So if you click on that, you will see that there are sample projects organized by theme, and then sample projects organized by UN Sustainable Development Goals. And so if you click on the one for the UN SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, you'll see there's a list of, and this is cut off, but there's 17 different projects. And these are all STEM projects with a STEAM element for most of them. They're primarily meant for junior and high school, but we do have extension activities for older students and modifications for younger students. They're all aligned to the Next Gen Science standards, to the Common Core, and they're very flexible and modifiable for you. So you can either take these and use these and teach them, or you can use them as inspiration to create your own projects. Do you want to quickly talk about diversity, Ethan?
Sure. I know we talked about this a little bit, but in terms of why we focus on diversity and including in that global competency, one of the things in South Carolina, and I imagine in many areas of California is the same, is that what we hear often as a career tech educator from our partners in our advisory board is that they really need students who have these skills, who know how to work with other people, who know the sensitivities of recognizing diverse perspectives, but then also having those project management skills, which is another resource that is in that CTE toolkit I found very effective. I think I touched on briefly that global competence is really helped my retention in classes and with students continuing on to post-secondary and careers in STEM. But one of the greatest arguments we have for it in our community is that is what our industry is looking for. And that we see that, so as an educator, that is really one of the things as we get students college and career ready, I need to be providing in a STEM course.
Yep. And we created a page in the toolkit with a collection of resources to help you around diversity, to set parameters for respectful conversations around diversity, which may be something that happens a lot in classrooms across the country this fall, given the national conversation. So we wanted to let you know that those resources are there for you. I'm just going to skip these. And share with you, lastly but not leastly, these professional development modules that we've created. We have 10 different modules. Each one's about 15 minutes long, but there are accompanying activities that you can do to go deeper on each one. They're all available completely for free. They're primarily for educators and middle and high school students, but we have had educators of younger grades use them and find the strategies to be very helpful as secondary educators. So what the modules do is they walk you through what is global competence, why is it important, how do you do high quality project-based learning, and then how do you integrate that project management piece. As Kirsten mentioned, it's really important for students to be able to complete projects, to have those skills in project management. And so then the modules actually walk you through how to build a STEM project. So you can see here those first 4 are really around what are the global skills, and then how do you design a global STEM project? How do you assess the global skills? And there are 2 on those project management skills for students. And then there's 1 just on respecting diversity. So that goes along with those resources that we just showed you. And then this is the project management toolkit for teachers that Kirsten mentioned, and this goes hand in hand with those modules. This is from the Project Management Institute's Educational Foundation, who also funded all of the resources that we created. So it's just a fantastic resource if you want to help students gain those skills.
As just to say, and it's free, and then they also have a digital badge that I think ages 12 to 19 can sit for, you know, which is a lower level to be able to demonstrate and to earn that, you know, entry level certification, and that's free as well. So, you know, words my director loves to hear that we have a free certification for the students to sit at the end. So
yeah. Are there any questions? We have a couple of minutes left for questions. If you want to type them into the box, I'll share. Actually, our emails are on the screen. Feel free to reach out to us. And then the link to the toolkit, which has all the resources as well as links to the modules. And there are a couple of other free resources that we can share with you as you're typing in questions. If you're interested in doing more around the UN SDGs, there's this site called The World's Largest Lesson, and they have all kinds of vetted lesson plans that are arranged by SDG. So that's another great resource. And then PBL Works, which is formerly Buck Institute, and Edutopia also have a lot of free resources to help you with project-based learning, with assessment, and lots of professional development resources as well, and high quality videos showing you what these projects look like.
So there's a question about the link in the screen window goes to the modules as well. Yes, in the PowerPoint presentation, which you can download from the original in the chat box, and then also, I believe, Heather, I got that right, that the CTE toolkit, I put that link in. That should take you to the modules, maybe.
Yes.
Circumvent, but it'll get you on the right page, right?
Yes, for sure. On the side of each page of the toolkit, there's the link, the online courses. So there's a link right there for career readiness in global economy, STEM, and CTE. And then the link to our PowerPoint, I'll put in the box, the chat box again too. That you have again.
Well, there aren't any further questions, Heather and Kirsten. I just wanted to help wrap up, if that's okay.
Sure.
It doesn't look like there's any others. And so I just wanted to thank you both for participating and providing us some incredible resources and examples of, you know, this, what you're talking about, authentic learning experiences. Is pretty incredible, Kirsten, to see how you did that work in Senegal. So thank you for sharing that and bringing it to life. I have an 11-year-old going into middle school, so I know I'm going to be, and she's concerned about the environment. So I have a real world case that, you know, I can send her to these websites, and I'm really excited to just be able to share with other educators as well. So if there's no other questions, let's see. Oh, the presentation tool. You mean the platform?
I wonder if that's for Kirsten for when you're doing projects, maybe.
We have used Zoom. We have to do a lot of asynchronous communication with Senegal, just because even when, I mean, for a lot of reasons, but brownouts, and that's partly why we're working there, is the energy access is not always reliable. But we have used Zoom before. We've also used Skype with a lot of hangups, but that's what we use.
I should say, too, that we're going to be doing a session for the December STEAM conference, and it's going to be focused on how do you do projects with schools in other countries. So we'll be taking you through that process of finding a school, what types of tools to use, how to create high-quality projects. So join us in December.
Thank you. That is a great closing to entice people to come back. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and have a super afternoon.
Thank you.
Heather. Thank you, Kirsten. Bye.
Bye.